Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order the Port of Newport regular commission meeting. It's January 26th and the time is 6 p.m. I know we had some changes to the original agenda. Are there any further changes to the agenda? So we'll utilize that addendum that came through that's posted on the website.
That would be it.
Okay, and then there's been two public comments that are a little further down in the agenda. Any other further public comments, Karen?
Have not received anything else.
Okay. Consent calendar, there might be a few items we want to talk about there before we approve. Specifically, maybe the financial or the audit reports. Any questions from the commissioners on those?
Yeah, I just suggest having taken them off, and then we can approve what's on the calendar and do it that
We'll
way.
take off C and D.
Yeah, I would be fine. The audit report is all I would like to have taken off. If someone liked the financials, it's up to someone else.
Okay, so we'll move the audit report to new business. Is that correct? Let's do that. Any questions about the waterway lease invoices? Or do we want to approve the consent calendar with the exception of the audit report?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so old business, I guess that's where the audit's going to fit in.
We need to say all in favor.
Oh, sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I have you guys on Zoom reduced down really small. I'm on an old laptop, so excuse me as I'm squinting. Okay, old business. Items removed from the consent calendar. FY 2019-2020 audit report. Walter, do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, I was just hoping that we would have had the auditors come and give us a little presentation on it. That was all. In years past, we've had them come to a meeting, or on this one they would have joined remotely. But it's always good to have that done out in public, and so people can see that we're actually discussing it as being discussed.
Walter, the only reason we didn't is there was absolutely nothing noted from the auditors. So for that reason, we didn't feel like it was necessary. But in the future, if you want, we certainly can do that. You know, if there was some notifications there from the auditor about anything that needs correction, we would absolutely bring them in and let them, them talk to you and let you know what we're doing about it. On this particular audit, it's a very clean audit, so, but I understand.
Yeah, just for transparency's sake, and let's pat ourselves on the back for having a good audit too, and put it out there for the public to hear.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's great to not have too many questions.
All I can say is Mark has done a phenomenal job in getting our finances in order, and that's a lot of kudos to him, because that's the reason why we have such a nice clean audit.
Yeah, so this is Gil. So how often is it that you have an audit that clean? I know my personal philosophy, working with the university for 30 years, is always to find something, right? I'm reviewing a paper, reviewing my grad students. There's always something, right? No one's perfect. So I know Mark's good, but is he that good? Or, and so the bottom line is, how unusual is it to have a clean audit? Are we just lucky, or is it because we're using really good methods? What's the phrase? Generally acceptable accounting standards, and doing a really good job. It's not about whether we're efficient or not as an operation, right? They're very clear in saying that. It's whether we are keeping the books correctly.
I can start and I'll let Mark tap in. In my experience, you're always going to strive for a clean audit in general, and you try the best you can to follow all the requirements, and anything that came up in previous audits, you try to correct those. And it's not that unusual. In my previous life, we had both, and often what would happen is when you change people on the finance side, there's always things that you end up having to correct. So sometimes any notes from the auditor, it's related to practices that have just not, been in tune with maybe the new people or the old people, or so in this particular case, I've seen plenty clean audits in the port industry, at least in previous port where I work, but I've seen some corrections as well. So it's not unusual. Mark?
Yeah, we're by any means, we're not perfect. In fact, I corrected something that I saw last week, that the auditors didn't catch. But we strive for perfection. We talk to our auditors when we have questions or before we implement new things, just to try and keep us clean.
Am I correct that we now have this group that we just used for this audit? We will, are we in contract with them for several years? Is that how that works? Or is it up for every year?
Just one more year, and then we'll have to do an RFP, and we'll do the next auditor for 5 years.
Okay, so we were, if I heard you correct, Mark, so we weren't perfect. They did not see them as some of the minor mistakes, but so they were the ones who weren't perfect, if I understand correctly.
No, I gotta say that I have worked with those folks. Not that we chose them because I worked with them, because we went through the RFP, but I have worked with them. They're pretty good, and having one minor thing not being caught, it's probably a pretty usual way to do this, because there's so much to look at it that I'm sure that there were always going to be something, but I think overall we're pretty happy with the auditors as how they look through everything. So I mean, I'll let Mark speak for it, but
you said it, Paula, we're very happy with them. They work with us well. They ask questions, and we use the same people the last 2 years, which is really nice.
And of course, I'm just joshing about this. So I would say congratulations, Mark, for doing a good job and for having a good auditor to work with, having a good working relationship. So that's great.
Yeah, very good news. Would any commissioner like to make a motion to accept the audit report? It's on page 29.
Well,
Jeff?
yeah, I just want to say first, good job on the no findings. Just great job there. But I'll make a motion that to accept the audit report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
All in favor? Or do I have a second? Sorry.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any questions about,
Was
Go
it
ahead.
Walter or Kelly that seconded?
I believe it was Kelly.
Kelly.
Any questions on the accounts paid starting on page 87? No questions heard?
I move we approve the financials as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thanks, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're down at page 105, resolution 2021, U.S. Army Corps lease for South Beach day use area, and a large lengthy report and survey. Paula?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So we have that day use area, which is basically a parking lot right under the bridge there at South Beach, and which the port apparently had a lease at one point that it was a 25-year lease that expired in 2014, but for whatever reason, that lease was never renewed, but the port kept using it. And there was some overlap issues there with ODOT, where apparently we also had some agreements with ODOT, and both Arian and I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. As a matter of fact, we ended up having to order some title reports and understand really ownership. Well, end up that even a little portions of the road parking lot, it's almost like a triangle portion of it that goes all the way into their building. It's showing as owned by we say Secretary of State, but the reality is the Army Corps of Engineers are the ones we're working with on this. So we went back and forth on this, and so we revised the lease, and which give us another 25 years starting from when the other one ended, basically. So that's why it starts in 2014. And what we did too is we shrunk the premises of the lease, because the old one, it stretched a little bit over that path that goes all the way behind the condominiums there, and even into their landscape. And we're like, no, we don't really need that. If anything, it's just liability for us, having things that where people walking may trip and fall and so on. So we basically removed that. We literally kept only the area within the parking lot. And we're still working with the Corps on the other portion where the road leases. And my recommendation here is that we'll continue negotiating with them, and eventually we're probably gonna recommend that we purchase that portion of property first, because if you look at their lease, they usually don't even allow for alcohol on the premises and things like that. Well, the lease with the Rogue it's a brewery, So and we discussed that, and they're right now just talking internally and how they're going to present that to us. And I'm assuming it will be somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000 per purchase that portion of property, but we don't know. We most likely have to do an appraisal. But for the time being, all we're asking is that we approve this lease so we can legally have the rights to be using this day use area. And as I mentioned on my staff report, it's not even something that the Army Corps charged us, but we have to present a report on an annual basis. So there are just some requirements, nothing crazy, but certainly it's something we have already been doing. It's not, the problem is neither party realized that was expired. So, and with that, I would ask for an approval of the lease.
Okay.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? So I have to admit, I was curious that the Army Corps owns the property. So is that usual around port districts or where there's jetties being built? Did they actually have to buy that property, or because of all the work that they had done? I mean, how does this typically work? And do they own any other property around the port at all besides that?
Yeah, they pretty much on that particular area. They pretty much own all the area near the jetty there, all that stretch all the way to the jetty. And it's not unusual because what that is for them is a right of way. It's a way for them to have access and maintain. Like they probably would never want to sell that to us, that portion, but the other portion on the parking lot, it's kind of a little bit outside of that right of way. So,
Got
but it's not unusual at all.
Okay, so it's the right of way to access the jetties, and that's why they would own that. Got it. But they don't own any other property. Thanks.
They may own other properties near the waterways, the jetties on the other side. I'm not sure. At this point, we're only looking at this.
So we'd have to read another 200-page report then if there was some small piece of parcel of property.
Yeah, but that would not be a very interested as
I
to.
know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I included all of those zillion pages just because it was part of of the report. That was an exhibit to the lease, but quite frankly, the important thing is the exhibit where it shows the location, the map, and the survey and for that particular area, and then of course the content of the lease itself.
Okay, any further questions from the commission? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Make a motion to authorize the Port of Newport to enter into a lease agreement with the Secretary of the Army for the South Beach Day Use Area.
Okay, it's resolution 2021.
Oh, sorry, resolution 2021-01. Yeah.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along. Do you want to talk at all about the annual report, Paula?
Well, basically the annual report, it's just as it says, is a report that shows all the resolutions approved during the last fiscal year. Well, actually, we have it in calendar year, right, Karen?
Yes.
And so we presented that over to the president, the secretary, and I think we had Gil sign it as well, correct? And they looked through and it seems to be in order. So unless you have any questions.
No, just giving you an opportunity to comment on it. Thank you for putting it all together.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah. Productive year.
Yes. Indeed.
Okay, so we have a report from Mark regarding G and K floors and the additional cost there, which there's a recommendation as well. So Paula or Mark?
I'll let Mark speak to that.
Okay.
So simple enough. I received an invoice from G&K Floors, reviewed it, and realized that the port was paying $200 per month extra on the invoice. When I questioned why, it went back to the origination of the contract and that someone verbally authorized a $200 per month payment in addition to what the contract is written for. So that's number one. Number two is the current guidelines on COVID require the restrooms to be cleaned twice a day. We're only cleaning once a day. So this recommendation is to authorize the previous payment and future payments of $200 per month for the extra cleaning, and then an additional $1,680 per month during the off season for the additional cleaning. We already have the restrooms cleaned twice per day during the busy seasons.
Does that tie into the county's rating system? Like if we go to intermediate, does that go away? Or do we have a clear idea of when the COVID emergency would be declared over, or?
Probably late fall, it would be declared over, but
Next off season?
yeah, it's we'd have about one more month of that we'd clean twice a month, then we get into our busy season.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? I do not have any. Can someone make a motion, please?
And there's a motion on
Page 319.
319.
I'll make a motion. I recommend a motion to authorize the general manager to sign an amendment with G&K Floors retroactively authorizing the previously paid and future payments of $200 per month for additional cleaning services, and authorizes 1 additional cleaning per day of the restroom facilities in South Beach at an additional cost of $1,680 for a total of $3,760 per month for off-season, that's October through February cleaning, until Port notifies contractor to discontinue or until the COVID-19 emergency is declared over.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I hear Kelly? I don't know if I heard Kelly.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, thank you.
It was there.
On to page 323, and this is resolution 2021-02, setting rates, fees, and charges. We also have a couple of public comments or letters to review. This is Mark Brown.
Let me start on that. I just want to say that, first of all, the rates that we came up with this year, obviously it's a little bit lower than last year in general, especially for South Beach, because we last year we were correcting several issues we had with length of mortgage, that it didn't cover all the costs to the port, so there was a bit of an increase. This year it's mostly based on CPI along with other costs related, and I'll let Mark speak to that, but we did actually, or he did, contacted those gentlemen that sent the public request, and my understanding is that they understood the outcome of their complaints, and at this point in time, we did give people, we thought we gave people enough time to review that. Letters were sent because I think that was one of the comments we got last year. They felt like they didn't really get notifications, even though the port put out public meetings and shows the rate. We send letters ahead of time. And with that, I'll let Mark get into the details.
And that was the real big emphasis this year, is every South Beach mortgage holder that held a mortgage for 6 or 12 months were sent a letter describing what we did with the rates, letting them know that we'd appreciate any feedback. So those 3 letters, 2 or 3 letters that you have, are a result of that, that letter we sent out. I've been real careful to describe exactly what we've done with the rates and fees in this cover letter. Mortgage 2.5% straight across the board, except for the commercial marina, which we had agreed to 10% 3 years in a row. Eliminated the electrical delineation between 120 and 240. That saves staff time from having to go back and forth and checking what electrical they're using. Used oil, as you know, we had an issue with our used oil containers, but we've changed the pricing on that to a single price, because most of the oil we get in reality is mixed oil. And then the other thing was access cards. When you get your second card, In South Beach, we've raised the rate with the intention of eventually matching what we do in the commercial marina. Again, make it easier to track rates and fees.
And let me add one more thing. I just want to highlight the fact that because of some of the fees that we increased at South Beach, and of course we have been doing that on North Commercial for the electrical work, that we have started the work in both areas. For North Commercial, we are right now putting together, we have a consultant putting together a plan for the replacement actually we have an engineer, better saying, for the replacement of the electrical panels over at Port Dock 3 and Port Dock 5. And we also started the work over in the load centers at South Beach. That's going to be over $600,000 the port's spending. And on top of that, we also had that sinkhole that we had to correct that was around a couple $100,000. So we are putting a fair amount of money in both sides of the bay. Again, you know, those are reflected that the monies are not just going to something else, but it's indeed going back in good part to those locations.
This is Gil. I have a question. And it's about these price indexes that you guys used, consumer price index, producer price index. And of course, we got some letters discussing those indexes, which were interesting to read. And I think the issue here, though, is these indexes are just rough guidelines, right? And there are also other indexes. I don't know if you've looked, Mark, if you've looked at other indexes out there that may be more appropriate to a port setting. But I think in the end, it's really about what cost generally will that you can that you experience in your unique site, in your unique port, that may or may not be exactly tied to the CPI, to the consumer price index. They may have their own unique tie. So I think we want to make sure that, you know, our customers know that it's just not automatically tied just to a CPI, consumer price index, or producer price index or some other index, but in fact is looking at the actual costs that we project will incur due to unique labor or unique capital or unique types of costs that we experience here in Newport. That would be my only comment. So you don't get into these debates about what the CPI, trying to use the CPI, and then someone says, well, that's only 1.5%. Why are you charging 2.5%?
It's a good point, Gil, because actually the expected inflation rate is 2.5%. But our cost per slip in South Beach on average is $3,641. That's what it costs to maintain per year.
Right, and you're trying to predict that with the CPI is just a way of predicting for the next 12 months and
That's
putting
correct.
together a budget. But there may be certain costs that have gone up, electricity. I don't know what it would be that you'd say, well, it's not going to be as high as 2.5, or it's going to be much higher than 2.5. And that's what people should get used to, that we're doing that kind of analysis, but to the best of our ability. And otherwise, you may have to use a CPI or something like that, lacking any other information.
Excellent point. Thank you, Gil.
Well, thanks for putting these numbers together. Any more questions regarding the rates and fees?
Yeah, I do, Jim. So this is regarding the parking in South Beach. It's on page 332. Are we going to start enforcing that this year?
We are meeting, in fact, on Thursday to identify the exact steps we need to take and assign responsibility for completing those steps, and with the intent of getting that done this year. That is correct.
Okay. I would like to know, because there's a lot of parking down there that's like on the street is the city.
Mhm.
Is there going to be a number of permits that we allocate daily? And once we do that, they stop being sold? Because we could have people buying parking slips and parking out on the street and thinking that we're charging them where they could park for free.
I think we talk about putting signs in some areas to clarify that we are not responsible for parking in the street, because the problem with stop selling parking permits at a certain point is that people may come and go throughout the day. So, they may come
Right.
for 2 hours, 3 hours or whatever, and then go away, and then there's a spot. So those are real difficult things to come by. So we're just gonna have to work through signs throughout the parking areas that it's showing specific, and maybe where people buy the passes, that it shows that we're the street parking is it's city, not the port. So
And make sure that they understand they should find parking first, then pay for parking.
And then they'll have to walk back to their car and put that back into their car?
Yeah, there's other potential solutions.
Okay.
Instead of using the Ventec machine, use their license plate with a phone application. So there are other ways that we may do it, but that's part of this meeting on Thursday. Discuss those options.
Are we going to have assigned parking? Because I can see people paying for a parking spot and then taking a boat spot.
that's
Wait,
part of the discussion as well.
No, I'm just bringing it up now because I'm not going to be at that meeting. I just want you to know my concerns.
Right.
And why is there the yearly pass only available for permit holders? Why shouldn't the public be able to buy a pass?
They can.
Well,
It's on the rate sheet.
it says on the chart here, it says annual for permit parking holders, for permit holders. Why couldn't someone from the public buy the parking pass who uses the facilities quite a bit?
I believe, so there's 2 prices for parking. And if it says, I'm going to look at it right now. What page is that, Walter?
332.
332?
Yeah, I know we discussed that. We talk about, as a matter of fact, for people just parking annually, that they would have a discount parking. So, hopefully we're reflecting that on
I'm talking about someone who goes fishing with someone else that doesn't have a boat permit.
Yeah, so as part of the resolution, we'll have to remove that because that is meant for annual parking. It doesn't mean you don't have to pay if you have mortgage already.
Right.
So this is just for parking. It's not for the mortgage holders get it free.
All right. So that's a typo then, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good spot.
Okay. Like I said, I'm cautiously supporting this, but I just want to make sure that we don't have people coming back to us who paid for parking and then said they couldn't find a spot and they want a refund. And it's depending on where this parking is going to be, it's asking quite a lot for people to go look for a spot, go back and go buy it at the kiosk if that's where it's going to be done, then go back to their car.
Yeah. And that's why it's taken so long to implement.
Yeah.
Because we want to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
Well, the issue I can find here, Walter, with that is that if people decide to just go and buy their parking and then go around looking for one spot and not find it, we're gonna run into a lot of people wanting refund, and it's gonna create a nightmare for our folks. That's the only concern.
Well, I would suggest going down there at 5 o'clock in the morning on a nice halibut day, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I understand your concern.
And that's when we'll get the most complaints.
Hey, Karen, can you let Aaron back in? Aaron got kicked off. Could you let him back in, please?
So did we implement the parking fee this last year or not? We haven't implemented yet, the $3.
We have not implemented yet.
Oh, you haven't. The way we talked about it was I thought we had, and we weren't enforcing it, but it's a different issue that I think Walter's raising. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Aaron. I got booted off the meeting there for about 10 minutes. So if anybody was looking for me, I'm here now. So
Welcome back.
You're still good.
Yeah, regarding the, rates and fees, I think just, continued outreach, like we've really made a big effort to do to let people know what's going on, and with parking and other things, signs will be paramount.
And we're glad to send out, more than happy to send out letters to those that have a mortgage, letting them know of this change. Again, I think communication is the key.
Yep. I think it's probably where we've fallen short a little bit in past years, not recent past years, but past years. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have one.
Okay.
I was curious. I know with Tom Pinnell, he mentioned the senior rate or a discount. Is there any consideration on that, or where's that going?
Yeah,
Or any
I believe I put that on my report, that we did discuss a bit last year as far as veterans discount, and then there's always the thought of a senior discount as well. I know the previous board I worked for did give a discount for seniors. So this is something that, whatever the commissioners feel like. Mark and I talked a little bit about it, and we're willing to consider it if this is something, although, obviously we would have to modify these rates if we want to implement it this year, or if we can talk about it and implement it next year.
Or we could come back with another proposal next month to give seniors a discount on these services of this percent.
Maybe that would be worth looking at it. Then we'd have the information and the cost in front of us.
Yeah.
And also potential changes in revenue. So I don't know the age disposition.
Just was
Are there a lot of
curious.
seniors or
Thank
not?
you.
So it would be good to do that analysis as well. Right?
Okay.
Whether it's veterans or seniors. Okay, thanks.
I don't believe we take people's age as we give them mortgage. It'll be interesting. It will be hard to really come up with how that is going to impact our revenues. If we had a general idea.
Well, you could take a rough guess, right? Just rough it out. Let's say we give them a 10%. We figure a fourth of the folks are over 65. Then just give us a sense of what the reduction of revenues would be. Probably not much.
So I have one question for Paul, one more, sorry. So once we adopt this, that's basically setting these fees already for next year.
That's the idea.
Okay. I just like to say in the past, we've left them up there for 2 or 3 meetings just in case people see them. And
Well,
comment.
yeah, that was one of the reasons we went ahead and sent this out in advance. But if you feel like that is necessarily, I know Mark wants to get this going.
Yeah.
It's, obviously it's the commission's prerogative to do what you prefer. I am working actively on the budget and hope to get a budget committee meeting in March sometime. But we have a few things to do before then.
I understand.
Yeah.
Seems like there's not many other questions regarding maybe analyzing that senior piece for mortgage holders. And is that commercial and recreational? I imagine it would have to be. So maybe we hold on this for a month.
Yeah.
You can present
Well,
something.
I would say this probably, it's typical for recreational. I don't know about commercial, but it is something we can discuss.
That's how I originally envisioned it, was just the recreational.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we want to hold on this for 1 month until the next meeting. Commission?
That would be my preference.
I'm flexible.
Yeah, I'm good too. I don't care either way either. I was just curious with that input, I mean, with him putting in that in the letter, if what that answer was. So
Yeah.
just curious.
And I'm okay with that too. Given Mark, I think there wouldn't be much change at all except for this one item, right? For you to do your initial planning.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to do. Just work with Bill to figure out what the percentages are.
Okay, thanks for looking into that, Mark. I think it's worth our efforts to do that, and we'll still be plenty on time to get this approved.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go on to the next item. D, Commissioner appointed to Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments.
So we have been, first we were notified that was expiring, and then my understanding is that apparently we have a couple more years. Isn't that right, Karen? Did you get any other? Okay, but with that said, we decided to go ahead and leave it on the agenda since we put it in there, and then also confirm that the folks that are currently listed still want to be the ones to attend those meetings. Right now we have Gil with Walter as an alternate. And if you still wish to stay at those committees, we can just go ahead and confirm that. And otherwise, this is the time to make any changes.
So how long is the, what's it for, 2 years? Is this, or every year? The
This,
membership?
I believe it expired in 2023. Is that correct, Karen? Yeah, same date, 2023.
10,020, okay. Yeah, so I've been trying to attend most of the regular meetings. It hasn't been too much of a burden, except that trying to get up to speed with all the issues and the massive budgets that council governments deal with. So if you take it seriously, it's not trivial actually, but there are so many members of it, right? So that also gets weird when it's 17 or 20 or 25 or 30. I forget what the total number is, 35. So it's a different kind of organization. So you try to exactly figure out how to manage your time and effort. We're trying to figure out a lot of the staff does 90% of the work, 95, not most of the commissioners at all. A lot of it's pretty pro forma. So I'm okay staying on this till 2023, and then we can revisit it.
And hopefully they won't be redoing the budget all the time. It's just once a year. So, so it'll be more of a manageable agenda, hopefully.
Okay, Walter, do you have any comments regarding being alternate?
No, I'm fine being an alternate.
Okay, let's go on to staff reports.
Okay. So even though this has been somewhat a short month because of all the holidays that we had, it feels like we had 2 months in one, quite frankly, because it's just been a lot.
Item E added to the agenda.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's that private aid that we need to get fixed.
Right. Sorry about that. I have both agendas in front of me. Commercial marina patent piling replacement. Aaron.
Yeah. This was a late addition because I just got the estimate in for this replacement of this pile. But the port's responsible for maintaining. This is a private aid to navigation. It's on the light list though, number 9657. It warns mariners of the base of the submerged jetty at the western entrance to the commercial marina. Anyway, the piling failed and came down during one of the bull ebbs recently on the king tides, and so I was able to get the emergency permit in from the Army Corps and also from DSL. So we have a permit to get this. We have all the permits we need to do this. And I went to the contractor for the Port Dock 5 Pier Project to get a quote because they're the only ones that are mobilized. So I'd recommend a motion to go ahead and contract with Advance American not to exceed $21,650 to remove the old piling and get it replaced with a new one for the boat basin warning marker.
And if I may add, as Aaron indicated, they're already there, ready to go. And normally we would go and get few different quotes, but because this really needs to be put out there quickly because of safety, this is kind of almost like an emergency contract. So that's the reason we don't have additional quotes or additional contractors listed.
Sounds like a smart move. This can be done within our in-water window.
Yes, yeah, it can be done prior to the 14th of February.
Yep, okay. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the general manager to contract with Advanced American Construction, NTE, not to exceed $21,650 to remove the old piling and replace it with a new one for the boat basin warning marker.
Do we have a second? Thanks, Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Okay, well, I guess I can finish up my report then.
Sorry about that. I had both agendas in front of me.
No, that's okay. I forgot my packet and I'm looking at 2 computers myself. So that's why I didn't have the other agenda and I forgot about it as well. So my apologies for that. So as I was mentioning, this has been a lot of things in 1 month. And quite frankly, all of our folks are extremely busy because everything, Mark, super busy because the audit and trying to get the budget going. And we are obviously still working with Hayek, trying to get the new system going, IT going. And so he is extremely busy at that. Aaron, it's running around like crazy because of all the storms that we have, plus the Port Dock 5 project. So again, I just want to say I really appreciate everyone and their teams for really carrying on and trying to get things done. So as the same reason we lost this piling audit that Aaron just mentioned, this storm has hit us a bit hard. As you already know, Port Dock 7 lost part of its dock, and I'm listing 65 feet, but it's actually, I heard correctly, it's 66, but another foot. Anyway, again, it shows the real need of us get this Port Dock 7 replacement going. I am working on actually the application right now with our grant writer for that, as well as for the marketing report over at the terminal. So we're really moving forward on that. One more thing that it's actually not listed in our reports, and the reason, quite frankly, is because I asked Aaron to remove because we still needed to talk to the tenant. Right close to Port Dock 1, near Discovery and Clearwater there, we have Captain Real, and we have a lease with them. They're a charter company, and apparently the pilings there are in real bad shape, so the storm didn't help matter. And we learned through the neighbor that our building, which is a small building, was leaning towards their building. So we had to send out an engineer there to get an inspection. It's not really looking good. Chances are that we may have to remove the building and condemn the property. We already talked to the tenant of the possible condition. We didn't have the full report at the time. And we have not yet condemned the building because it's smart to bring in the city inspector first to take a look at it. And we're basically just waiting for that, which we hope to happen soon. Meanwhile, we probably gonna make the property not usable for the time being until we don't want anybody to get hurt. So we need to figure out what we're gonna do. If we remove that building, you know, the dock itself, it's not in good shape because it's all about the pilings underneath. So we'll see what happens. We probably gonna have a better idea maybe that during the next commission meeting, and we'll come with a proposal and what to do with that property. Meanwhile, if we decided that it's absolutely not usable, we may put signs and not allow anybody in the building until we decide to remove it. And it's possible, depending of the situation, if it's really a dangerous situation, that we may even have to bring a special meeting to take care of that problem, okay? As I mentioned in my report, we have put out a claim from our insurance for the Port Dock 7 portion that we lost. We still don't know how much that will be. And, you know, so we're still waiting on that. As to the other one, we have no idea if that it's something we're gonna be able to put a claim or not. We know that the storm may have contributed, but we really don't know. So we're gonna have to look at it and see and talk to the insurance company about that one. The contractor has already started at the South Beach Marina, mostly is ordering equipment at this point. And we still intend to get that completed before halibut season. As mentioned, there was some concern about putting some GFIs on each panel in order to avoid losing power to everyone if one boat goes down. We're looking into that right now. We, at this point, are trying to coordinate with the contractor there and trying to find the equipment actually, and see if we can order and find them and put them at about the same time. In that case, most likely we would use our own staff to place those. We estimate there will be somewhere around $30,000. That amount is still within the original budget amount, at least the supplemental budget that we added. So we'll figure it out. Either way, we'll bring it back to you and let you know. Aaron's been working with the engineer Port Dock 3 and Port Dock 5 for the electrical panels. There was some back and forths with the PUD. Initially, they thought that we would have to put 10 times more power than we already had, which could cost the port a lot of money. But thankfully, they kind of decided that that's not the case. So we're back to the original estimate. So that's always a good thing. And the best news is obviously we got our in-water work extension, and work will be starting tomorrow. Yay! So we're very excited, which means Aaron is going to be even busier dealing with that. And I appreciate all the work he's done to get to this point. Let's see here. We're still trying to figure out the estimates for the port admin building. I haven't got that. Most likely will be around February when we know better. Meanwhile, a loan application has been submitted to Business Oregon, and they're reviewing it. Obviously, we won't move forward with that unless we know we are moving forward with the building. As I mentioned too, the derelict vessel, it's becoming a big issue. not only for our port, but to many ports around the area. So DSL, Department of State Land, and the Oregon Marine Board have been putting a plan together. Our port is one of the first ports that start working with them, making sure people that more at our port have their certifications that they can be there. And we're really chasing insurance, and but it's still becoming a problem. I mean, just this past couple months, we had to remove one boat that, you know, send it over to Toledo and cost us $7,500. And this month we had to remove another one, $10,000. It's a very problematic issue. As a matter of fact, just today I got a call from the Port of Brookings Harbor asking a lot of questions about the same thing, because they're having the same problem. They said they usually spend about $50,000 a year with abandoned vessels. So it is an issue, as I mentioned here. Even Schrader's office contact us to see what they can do on the federal level. And I basically told them, well, have a bucket of money for the state to deal with, because, you know, we can put a lot of policy in places, but the issue here for ports in general is that it's an interstate issue. People get kicked out of marinas in Washington, they come to Oregon. They get kicked out of marinas in California, they come to Oregon, vice versa. So it's like they keep moving from one marina to another, and eventually they both die and they move on and just abandon them. So, you know, if they create some sort of federal funding, since it's an interstate issue, I think that would be helpful for the state to do a bit more, and not put this just on the ports and the marina owners to deal with. See here. Oh, and I want to also acknowledge and thank Lincoln County for providing us a grant for the seawall at Rogue. We got, actually, I wasn't 100% sure of the amount, because by the time I wrote this, I didn't have the letter yet, but I was notified that we have received their, what they call the Community and Economic Development Fund grants. So we got $12,900. We expect the seawall project to cost somewhere around $30,000. And so I'm starting to work on that to get quotes and see what we can do to get this moving. So I don't, you know, we don't want to wait too long and have same type of issues we have at other properties, because you just don't take care of it. So let's see. Yeah, as if you had a chance to look at the financials, we're actually in pretty good shape. Considering COVID and everything that went on, we are in real good shape. Obviously, some other ports had different things going on during COVID, such as Port of Toledo. You know, the vessels here that lost money, they unfortunately weren't able to invest on resizing their boats and things like that, but they still need mortgage. So for us, it hasn't been a big impact, but for others, it may have. But we are doing quite well, because the RV park and the marina was quite full and busy, and continue being busy through the winter, not full, but certainly busy. And we really expect that to continue through spring and summer. I think we already almost sold out for the summer. Maybe Mark can speak to that, but things are starting to get real busy. And he was like saying how almost, Mark, what is the situation right now? You came up, so I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, we are almost sold out in the marina and the RV park for the summer, and we're significantly ahead of where we were last year. That's a calendar year to date.
Yep.
So we're doing really well at the park.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yeah, so I don't know if you had a chance to listen to, but I did actually had a radio interview with last month. It's probably still on their website with Kathy Kraken. I continue to attend the Maritime Innovation Center meetings. I want to remind you that we do have the SDAO conference, which is all online this year, coming up on, I believe is on the 3rd and the 4th of this month. You can go online and register yourself, or you can ask Karen to register you, but it's completely online and you can actually choose the topics you wanna attend. You don't need to attend the whole thing. So that's the good part. So and you get to stay in the comfort of your home. You don't need to travel to anywhere this time. And then in March, we do have the PNWA. And I think that's just a little token fee. So if all of you wanted to attend, that's fine too. That would be equivalent to what would be the mission to Washington. I believe they're still going to have a lot of the legislators attend, and there in some cases there'll be opportunities to talk to them, ask questions and so on. But it is online. So we're not going to Washington DC this year. So other than that, if you the one more thing I guess I could add is right now OPPA, the Oregon Public Ports, reviewing all the legislative bills, anything that impact ports. And I'm actually on the legislative committee because I'm on the executive committee, so it's an automatic. So we already review a whole bunch of bills last week. We have another whole bunch next week. Just to basically what we do is to talk about the ones we want to support, oppose, and the ones we're just watching because it may impact us one way or another. If you do know of anything that you feel like we should be discussing and bring into a legislative level, please let me know. So that's about it. Barring any questions.
Yeah, Paul, I had one question about the captain's building. Was there any tenant liability for keeping us up to date on what's going on with our property?
Yeah, that is something we have to discuss with them. That this is a weird lease because it does put a lot of the upkeep obligations onto the tenant. It doesn't really define if it's just the building. In this particular case, it's really on the piling supporting the building. So it's a tricky one. So we're looking into it.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Paul, I have a question about the derelict vessels. So I assume this is a problem for all ports in terms of how you handle derelict vessels. And if there's no other solution, then that cost just gets spread out to everyone, including ultimately the higher costs and fee structures, right? So, and I don't know if there's other solutions, right? If people post a bond, or the insurance companies have to handle it, or some other third party way to handle this rather than this cost falling to directly to the port.
Well, we are even we're learning how to deal with this ourselves and how to better treat it because, in the past, perhaps we weren't so on top of making sure what kind of insurance that we're receiving. So we require under our mortgage agreement as well as under our port policy that any vessels mooring in our marinas would have to provide insurance. The problem sometimes is what kind of insurance, and are we following through the details when we receive those insurance certificates, you know? So we are definitely creating a much better plan now for the board and how we're going to review that. So and making sure that there is very specific. Do we require pollution insurance? Okay. Do they have pollution insurance? What is the liability? Okay. Does that match? And in the case of a vessel that we dealt with, for instance, last year, this boat sunk, and the owner didn't have the proper insurance. And the worst part is that person purchased that boat from somebody else that the title wasn't even fully transferred. So it became this big ordeal. Right now, we're working with the state where if they transfer the vessel to us, we may be able to claim it on the derelict vessel, you know, but the port has to own it. So it's very complicated in how it works. So we're still, quite frankly, trying to deal with it and understand. And like I said, talking to other ports just today, they're in the same situation. So I think we will continue. I know that this topic has been big on OPPA's agenda in the past. We even had the Marine Board and DSL come and speak to us in that regards. And I know, you know, the funniest thing is whenever it becomes a big problem in Portland, then becomes a big problem statewide, right? The issues start becoming more of an issue when a lot of people were abandoning their vessels in the Willamette River. You know, they're going upstream in the Willamette River, right near, not too far from downtown, and they were abandoning their boats there on the Columbia River. So a lot of people start complaining and became this big ordeal in Portland. Now all of a sudden it ascended to the state level, and now the state is sort of putting a little bit more attention into this matter. So, but we'll continue doing our part. Like I said, I think one more thing to add is as we bring vessels in, just like we have certain requirements for RV not to be too old and falling apart, we're gonna really watch closely on boats as well. So if a boat come in and they don't have, you know, they're looking like they're not very navigable, and they don't have the proper insurance, we're probably not going to accept them, you know. So again, we're still coming up with the details on that, but it's certainly something that we will be watching very closely, because throughout the years, this is something that can cost a lot of work and money. And
Right.
yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
it sounds like it's not just money, but a lot of your time
Yeah, a lot of
this, which is better spent elsewhere. And finally, maybe this is an Aaron question back to Port Dock 7 and the piece of the dock that broke off. So if we had other major storms, let's say another one or two or three, would other parts of Port Dock 7 be at risk? Does that breakage even create new dynamic forces that put the rest of that dock area at risk? Anyway, those are my questions. Because we may have been lucky, right, that everything handled, there was no other damage, but one can imagine, it doesn't take much imagination to see some significant problems that might have occurred because of that.
Aaron?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. If it was probable, I think we would need to go ahead and kick people off of the dock. But I don't know. I can't really say for sure, you know, if it's definitely possible. I think what happened that night when that broke loose is a few different things. We had 50 knot gusts out of the southwest. A lot of this happened on a higher tide, so the boats float higher on the pilings. and that breakwater actually provides just a little bit of lee when it's lower tide, so the winds don't hit the boats directly. So when they get higher up, they have more sailway. When you think about 15 boats tied to the dock, and you multiply all that sailway that gets exposed to the wind, it pushes on the dock that much harder. But this was over on the end. The pattern that has happened with that dock is that the ends have degraded. So we're down to another piling right now that's on a new end of the dock. I don't mean to say a new end, but it's now the end of the dock, and that piling's got some issues in it, and most of the pilings on 7E do. So it's a possibility.
Okay, but you're arguing that it was a rather unique combination of circumstances. So
Yeah, I don't think it was uncommon in the sense that this is like a 50-year storm or anything like that, but that's probably that was a 50 knots of gusts over the course of the night like that. It was a pretty good storm. It was a good blow.
All right. Well, anyway, more reason to work on Port Dock 7 as we discussed. Yeah, replace it. Thanks.
I did want to add, something else on this derelict issue that doesn't get talked about, that a lot of folks don't understand, I think, is that it's easy to sit back and imagine a scenario where we could just say, well, you don't have insurance, you have to get out. But you also have to understand that on the coast, our situation is a little bit more unique here, because there's no sea tow, there's no other salvage companies around here, and there's also not really anywhere else, or very few other places in the estuary where they can go. So if you got a situation where there's a boat that's in a bad state of repair, and they come into the marina, and we say you don't have insurance, you're gonna have to get out now. What oftentimes happens is they'll get underway, they'll break down or run into problems, and then they'll call the Coast Guard, because there is no other salvage company to call. The Coast Guard responds, and the Coast Guard will bring them back to our docks, and there's not anything that we can really do about that. So this is not really, it's a lot more complex than just looking at, and booting people out of the marina if their boat is not operational, as you say. They're really not out of our area until they clear Cape Kiwanda to the north and Cape Perpetua to the south, because then they're in another Coast Guard station's AOR. And if they break down there, they're going to tow them into the nearest safe port in that direction. So if they wind up in Yaquina Bay, they're probably going to be at our docks any way we look at it.
So this is the classic definition of a conundrum, isn't it?
That's why we need more federal funds to be given to the states.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, tough challenge.
Okay, any more questions for Paula?
Yeah, hey, I was gonna, if we're missing some pilings on 7, is there any reason we couldn't, since we have this extension on the work window, we couldn't put a couple down there on 7 to shore it up a little bit while we're mobilized also?
I'll let Aaron answer to that, because we were just talking about that today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we need to we don't have permits right now to drive pilings in that area. We can't pull the emergency trigger on it because we've well forecast the degradation of the dock. So the Army Corps is not going to allow us to get an emergency permit to drive new pilings down there, because they will argue this is a lack of planning rather than an emergency. So it's kind of like what I've said before. What we need to do is we need to plan to replace the dock, or we need to plan to lose it. And putting more money, those docks are the wood doesn't even have, it's not viable to put dock hoops into the wood to keep the docks in place. So if we drive new pilings, we're on the dock's done. There's not much else to be done with it.
The one thing that I thought first of all, that the whole issue will just help our case in terms of trying to get a grant to fix the problem, hopefully. If anything good came out of that, maybe they just add to the fact that, we just keep tipping away with our dock. And the second thing is, most likely we will get some insurance money, hopefully, that money can be used again if we don't get the amount of grants we're looking for. It's certainly something we can use towards that plan. So we have a good plan to go for the big money to replace the dock itself. So it is a possibility. Obviously, we won't do anything in that regards until we talk to you, but it is just something I thought we could possibly use the insurance money depending on how much we get.
So this is interesting. So, and what the Coast Guard said about, rather Army, about an emergency versus bad preparation is interesting, because depending on your point of view, it can be an emergency to someone else who could be affected by this, right? So I find that whole argument rather interesting. So let me ask you this, Aaron. Suppose you did get a worst case scenario again. Let's say we got a forecast of a major storm coming with predicted sustained winds of 50, 60, 70 knots from the southwest. What do we do? Do we do anything?
Well, if you wanted to get people off the dock, the answer would be to have them anchor. But I don't know in that scenario with 60, especially 60 or 70 knot winds, having boats anchor is not it's not really a good idea if you can avoid it. You can also, as I was down there on the dock that night, I was thinking, there's not much to be done. It's a really difficult scenario. You could ask them to throw an anchor down as they moor, because then you've got at least something else that's holding the boats into the ground. But usually to set an anchor, you got to put a little bit of tension on it. So it's not like it really does a lot of good just dropping the hook right as soon as you tie up. But I think, the only answer would be to say, shut the dock off and tell people they cannot use it. But again, like I say, those boats are going to come in. They need to get in to get away from the storm. Theoretically, I mean, if they're of the right size and they can't stay out, they're going to need some place to be able to berth. And right now, that's better, I think, in that scenario than anchoring out in the bay someplace, because they're probably going to drag.
Aaron,
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I was just wondering if we're planning on putting any money into that outer dock at 7 at all until we plan on rebuilding it, or we're just gonna let it go.
I don't have any. I mean, to come up with a way for us to put money into it that would be worthwhile without it, because, like, for example, we just put a bunch of new lumber on it last year, and we put down a bunch of non-skid. I can't remember what the name of the paper is. This is basically like roofing material.
Yep.
That storm that we just went through ripped a bunch of that stuff apart. And a lot of the lumber that we put down is not. I mean, it's getting ready to come apart itself, because when you go to mount the boards into the rub boards and the sides of the dock, that wood's all rotten.
Right.
So you're taking good, and it's I mean, we could put some money into it, but we're probably going to lose it in a very short time period.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, it's just like putting lipstick on a pig at this point, with the way the situation of those docks are, and that's the reason why I think we need to really focus on being ready, getting this plan ready, and see about getting the funds to replace it. I don't know that. We talk a lot about this and just trying to fix the issue right now. It's just not gonna cut it anymore. It's just reached a point that it's not working.
And that's 7E and F is what I'm primarily talking about here. 7, the inner dock there is in better shape. It's a little bit better. It'll hold, it holds up to the weather a little bit better. But that outer dock is it's 6 feet wide too. So when you have boats tied to a float dock that's mounted with pilings on one side, and you have boats that are 65 feet in length or so, and a 6 foot wide float in between them, it puts a lot of lateral strain on the dock. The dock wants to go like this, which puts even more strain on the dock hoops and the pilings themselves and everything else. It is outright a scary place to be in the middle of a storm.
So having said that, just not to beat a dead horse or beat a bad dock. But you, at a minimum, we should alert people, right? If there is a bad storm coming, and provide whatever warnings are necessary so they can take whatever reasonable action as compared to not doing anything. Or maybe they're all alerted now after what happened, and the skippers and owners are sensitive to the issue. If, again, hopefully no more big storms like that will come, but it's possible.
Oh yeah, definitely possible. I mean, that's all we can do is let them know the risks of it. They're probably going to ask us what else we would rather they do, and especially on that particular night, I didn't have any other choices. I mean, once we got those 2 boats off the dock, we had to put one at the hoist dock, and the other one wound up tying outboard of Miss Sue. Thankfully, we were able to get them in out there toward Port Dock 3, but we didn't have really, you know, it was a 72-foot Gulf shrimper, single screw with not a lot of power. So the idea of having him clear the marina and then head out to the terminal, I didn't really think it was a very good idea and the winds weren't dying down anytime soon. So, you know, that was about the best we could do with them. But even then I sit there, I'm like, you know, Port Dock 3's loaded up, and we put another boat outboard of one at Port Dock 3. It's anyway, I wish I had a better scenario for you.
Jim?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What's a realistic timeline to have Port Dock 7 rebuilt?
We can get that done in winter of 2024-25, but we have got to get the plan started like right now.
So that's assuming we get a lot of grant money.
Yeah, I think that's all going to depend on the grant, because now you're talking about millions and millions of dollars. But I would say this, once we have a good plan, I think it will be much easier, and especially the impact that this dock, you know, have economically in this area, in this community. I feel positive about a possibility, but again, there's no way the port would ever be able to afford it without a major grant.
So basically 4 years.
Yeah, that's about right. Permitting is the biggest problem. I think in the overall cost picture, we also have to ask ourselves if we can afford to lose the dock. Because like I said, we're going to lose it. It's not going to be there. So any boats that we would moor there and all the linear footage and the moorage that we draw from that will go away if we don't get it replaced.
So it's, if more of it tears apart, you know, I guess there's a decision, do you put money into it if you're going to try to replace it? But also, if you don't put money into it, you may lose money because it tears apart and then you don't get moorage. I don't know how much you really make off of that.
From my understanding, Jeff, I don't think it will tear apart because we're not putting money into it. I think even if we put money into it, I don't think it will fix that problem. As Aaron indicated, the problem is you fix one thing, you still have others, like he said, that right now there's not even a place to nail things in because everything is so rotten. So in order to fix one thing, you have to literally replace it. You know, so, and then what do? Are you going to replace, say right now, we just lost 66 feet. Are you going to replace that 60 feet and attach to an old dock that it's falling apart? So that's the biggest issue we have right now. And we're just talking today, I was talking to Kent and trying to figure it out, because as I'm putting together this grant application, you know, in the last 20 years, including this 66 feet that we lost, we have lost what, about 386 feet worth of dock at Port Dock 7.
Yeah,
it's
quite possible we could lose that E&F out there before our 4 years is up. Is that a fair statement?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
put money into it. I mean, to equate it into like a boat scenario, it's kind of like it would be like if we had a 38-foot double ender salmon trawler that was built in 1925. Would you want to put money into that to keep it alive, or do you cut it and let it go and get it replaced with something that actually fits the bill nowadays? That's and it's really, I mean, it's just like, it's like a bad salmon trawler. I mean, it's not even in very good shape. So
Yeah, I understand all that. I do. Just thinking through the what ifs, you know.
Yeah.
What if that 4-year time period doesn't come? What if we don't get the grants?
Mm.
What if it tears apart and then keeps on tearing? And I'm, you know, I'm not advocating for one thing or the other. It almost, I'm just sitting here kind of thinking it through. Does this require sort of a more of a, are there more things to be considered and options sort of roughly sketched out as far as what, is there something to be done, or are we at the decision where no, there's nothing to be done, it's not worth it, and it may just tear apart, and maybe that's where we're at. I don't know, but it seems like it could be a very big deal.
We discussed this scenario quite a bit, and I guess what we're trying to do now is push as hard as we can to get this going again. You know, I think it's very important to get this first grant, and if we don't, the port may need to consider putting some money and just getting this plan done, because without the plan, we're just not going to get the funds, you know, and we can push it. And I mean, there's still going to be a long period for all the permits. That will itself will take a while, but we could shorten the time if we're really aggressive in trying to get this plan done, and then get push to get that grant. But sometimes even the grants, you may put up 1 year and you may not get it, and you put out another year, you may get it. So we don't know, but we certainly will be very aggressive in pushing this to get that thing replaced.
Yeah, I know that you all are extremely busy. The number of things you've been juggling, there's a lot of emergencies like this when you all are juggling, and then just the projects. I think you're doing a great job, and I just wondering if at some point it's worth looking at what are the what ifs, you know, sort of a planning for worst case scenario if Port Dock 7 tears apart more and we don't get the grants. Or what are the costs? What are the different ranges of scenarios on what we could lose or what we could, I don't know. I just don't want to be sitting here 3 years from now and say, oh man, maybe we could have done such and such. And maybe the right answer is that it's just not worth putting one nickel in it. And that's quite, and I actually, I trust you all, you know, more than you guys are looking at this a lot. You know, you're looking at the finances, you're looking at the docks, you're dealing with emergencies. But it's kind of it's a little, I don't want to say scary, but
It is
scary.
yeah,
I know
you know,
there's no easy answer.
this was in, remember too, our discussions back when we were talking about planning for Port Dock 5 and the pier. These were the exact same issues that we were talking about then. And we're getting ready to start that project, and it's gonna get completed on time. You know, from back when we originally started looking at this thing, we're getting this project done, and these projects are competing very well, I believe, in the funding world. Like I said, the Army Corps jumped on that Section 107 request because these projects make sense to the economic security of this region. And if we are able to get those points across, and I have no doubt that we can, it's almost harder for us not to argue that, or to not, you know, these projects are competing very well, and they are getting a lot of interest from people. I think that's my opinion.
And I think the fact, well, we haven't gotten it yet, but it seems like we're on a way to do it. We should know more in February. But, you know, the fact that they're really putting a lot of thought into this Section 107 dredge project, it's really going to help our case to replace the dock. So this is happening in the perfect timing, because those projects are definitely in sync with the need to replace this dock. And they also did a draft. We only seen a draft in economic impact analysis. And that's the reason why they're moving forward, because it shows that it does have a huge economic impact in this community. And not only for this community, because this is a federal project, we're talking about it, but for the country in general, because of the products that come out of here. So I would say that this, you know, getting this project on the way, this dredge project will contribute immensely on us getting another grant to actually replace the dock.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for all that. I'm kind of thinking out loud here. And there is there's some things, there's a confluence of factors in that a lot of our worst weather happens in December and January. And that's right at the time where all the crabbers are sitting there at the docks, and it's the most packed time of the year for those docks. And it's the time of year where you're going to get some of those storms. So there's a confluence of factors there that I don't know if that would require a little bit of additional thought these next few winters as we get to that point. So again, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but anyway, sorry I've taken up a little bit of time, but thank you for that.
Yeah, I also have some more questions, but not the length of this meeting, but because I don't understand how our insurance works when the docks indicates that status, and what point of view they would take if there was a worst case scenario and a lot of damage or costs associated with that. And at what point is a dock a derelict or rotten dock and should not be used at all? And whose responsibility is that? When we have roads and bridges and other things, the state steps in and to prevent that from happening because through inspections. But I think for our situation as a port, sounds like it's our responsibility to determine that. And at what point is a dock safe or not safe, and should or should not be used? And we can continue this at another meeting. I know it takes a while, but these are the thoughts circling through my head. In again, worst case scenario with another bad storm.
Well, what I can add to that is, we put in a claim for what we lost. So it should be interesting to see what comes out of that. That would give us a good indication of the situation. So we'll see.
Ellie?
So, sorry, Jim. What do we need to do to get the process started? Or were you guys just working on that process of the Dock 7?
We put in for this year's budget $200,000 to work on this plan, and right now I am working with our grant writer. We're trying to figure out what is the best grant. So I actually was just working on this week. We're putting out an application to the EDA for the plan. And typically the way this works too is whenever they work on plan, they have a better tendency to want to continue the project. So hopefully we can do the plan if they approve it, and then we can move forward with with the actual construction. So the concept is the port would put in $50,000 and we're asking for $150,000 grant. So we'll see what happens. It usually take a couple months to get those, those things reviewed and approved. And then we have, if it gets denied, then we have to make a decision. Like I indicated, we'll find out what our insurance says about our losses there. And this is something the port needs to decide as, do we want to put, some of those funds towards the plan, because again, we cannot move forward with construction unless we have a plan. And I tell you, you're never going to get a construction grant without a plan. Just not going to happen. So we're working on it.
And then I was thinking out loud when Jeff was, those outer docks during those stormy season or those months, December, January, what about putting signs up that only certain length vessels can try to limit the weight and the length, and I don't know if that would make a difference, but try to preserve those outer docks, whatever we have left there, but for those stormy months. So I was just trying to think out loud with preserving.
I can tell you this much, Kelly. I mean, you have fishing boats. You know how this works. I think it's going to create a huge political issue if we tell people that they cannot moor, especially during weather. It would be very difficult. That's all I can say. I mean, we can certainly do that to preserve the dock. But obviously, as Erin indicated, it's hard for people to just go and anchor out, and they're going to say, what now? And there will be a whole bunch of complaints and very unhappy people that can be very political at a time. So it's just something to be aware of it, since you guys are on the political side of things, that you will, if we go that route, there will be issues.
There's a good chance, and then before we're able to complete this project, that we will need to decommission those docks to reduce our personal injury and vessel liability exposure, I'd imagine, between now and reconstruction.
Right.
I mean, time will tell, but we'll have to kick people off those docks, most likely before that time comes.
Right.
And at that point, you would have to tell people that they can't moor because there won't be a dock.
Right. Just as long as the dock goes away before someone gets hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the added, like I said, the biggest challenge about all this stuff is permitting. And once you take away the docks, you lose the opportunity to use that in mitigation on a future project, because the only way you can grab the idea of we can't. I've already talked to the permitting agencies about trying to preserve those. The only way you can get the credit for the space over the water and the removal fill credit, stuff like that, it has to be included in the permit application for the project at the time.
Right.
And so you lose the opportunity of getting the square footage. Anyway, it's a challenge.
Hey, another conundrum. You guys are brilliant. That's like the third or fourth you've come up with today. So it's the world of public ports. This is amazing. But I agree with Jim, though. I think we need to take this pretty seriously. I'd rather take political heat and have a discussion about it than put at risk people's boats and people's lives over this issue. If the dock should be condemned, they should be condemned. If they can't do the job, then why should we just keep our fingers crossed and hope there's not another major storm and then face a really very serious issue? And then we'd really face political heat and other kinds of heat. So that's my concern in thinking through these worst case scenarios, which I think is what the commissioners are doing right now.
Now, you all may know, everybody may know this, but there was more bad weather days than good for like, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 weeks? And there was just boats in town, delaying the crab season. It was for price, but it was also probably more weather. And there was every spot was taken. And we're talking, now I'm not talking the docks, I'm talking the plants. I'm talking there were boats upriver. It was, and boats going to the terminal that couldn't find a place. It was stacked. And then, and maybe everybody already knows that, but I just thought I'd point that out. It's, I know I'm not telling Aaron anything he doesn't know.
Popular place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also have the squid season has been attracting a lot. So in the springtime last couple of years, we've had another explosion of a lot of time at the dock for a lot of boats. So
Yeah, I was going to add that in not only the squid in the spring, but even some crabbers. There are few people coming from out of town nowadays, so in as a matter of fact, we have some local folks complaining. So it is definitely busier because people are finding that they're being luckier coming into our area than whatever they were before. So we find more and more people wanting long-term use of our dock. And we have less and less because we keep chipping away.
Well, and I think we've got bigger and bigger boats coming all the time. The boats are big and the boats are wide, and you get more bigger and wider, and then you bring all these other bigger and wider, and so the port can't keep up with what the boats are. What the industry is doing. So there's just no way, and so you can't blame the port that they can't keep up with all of the increases in boat size. So, you still have the smaller fleet, but you also have the bigger fleet that just keeps growing, not just the amount of boats, but also the size and width. And so anyway, so the port just can't keep up with that demand. So you can't have all these new people coming in demanding, hey, we deserve a spot too. So yeah, so it does kind of become an issue, and everybody has their thoughts and ideas about it. So yeah. So.
You all got job security for years and years. Never a dull moment.
Unless people are so mad at us, we lose our jobs.
I think y'all been doing a great job.
Yeah, can't make the industry into itself. So, we're the ones that are getting wider and taking up more and more space. And we got some. So you got the port. You guys can't take the heat for that. So we appreciate you guys doing this with all of us. So, because it's a big job.
I appreciate you saying that, Kelly, but unfortunately, when we are the ones dealing with, people want us to solve their problems, whatever those are at the time, because they feel like they're the only ones that, are dealing with the issue. When you have everyone looking for that mortgage space and they pay their annual fee, it's an interesting one, but it is definitely a problem that it's staff and commission level. It goes both ways, but we certainly will always try to work with folks. But I agree with you. If there is liability, we definitely have to take that into consideration, because to me, I always look at, liability first, would deal with that, and it versus just trying to accommodate everybody.
Okay. All great arguments to get the Port Dock 7 plan going. Any other comments for Paula? Questions? Okay, ready to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, Karen's saying no.
Karen wants to keep going.
Okay, time is 7:44.
Any commissioner reports?
Any commissioner reports?
None.
I don't have anything to report. Holiday season. May I adjourn the meeting now, Karen? Okay, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 7:44 p.m. Tuesday, January 26th.